Welcome to In Focus. Today, we delve into the intensifying situation in Lebanon, where Israeli airstrikes continue to impact both military operations and civilian lives, with recent attacks even targeting journalists, sparking global concern. Meanwhile, in the US and Trump-Harris election race heats up as early voting reaches record levels and polls shift. Stay tuned for key insights on these pressing issues. Today we delve into the intensifying situation in Lebanon as the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah escalates, impacting both military and civilian domains. Israeli airstrikes continue and journalists on the ground have become targets, raising serious international concerns. And as dusk settled over Beirut, the city trembled under Israeli strikes, a stark reminder of the ongoing conflict. Just hours earlier, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had cautioned against a drawn-out campaign in Lebanon, hoping to steer the regions towards ceasefire talks amid escalating tensions. The Guardian reported that in the southern suburbs, panic ensued as evacuation warnings echoed through Hezbollah's bastion, while an attack claimed the lives of media staff at a guest house. Amid these harrowing events, diplomatic efforts intensified, aiming to bridge the divide and negotiate a fragile peace, as whisper of a potential resolution floated in the air. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken urged restraint, emphasizing that further attacks could jeopardize their own interests amidst escalating tensions. And we're joined by Dr. Mohammed Osman, a political researcher from Cairo, to give us his insights on the recent developments, including the humanitarian crisis emerging amid the violence. Dr. Osman, good evening to you.
Good evening, Mona. Thank you for having me on your program.
Thank you so much for being with us. And given the recent airstrikes that targeted journalists in Lebanon, what does this incident suggest about the current state of press safety in conflict zones?
Well, this latest incident is rather a continuation of a systematic Israeli policy of targeting journalists and media workers in general for the past year, since the conflict in Gaza started and spilled over into Lebanon. We've had journalists and reporters dying in Lebanon even before the all-out war phase or the full-scale war phase that erupted in September. Before that, we had a cross-border war between Hezbollah and Israel. And even then, reporters were targeted and were killed. And of course, over 100 reporters and journalists died in Gaza. And this gives us an insight into the nature of the Israeli attacks, which, as I mentioned before, are systematic. And systematic means that they are coordinated and they have aim. And the aim behind them is to basically conceal and cover up the magnanimity of the Israeli violations and crimes that are taking place on the ground. As we speak, for over a month now, southern Lebanon has been subjected to, and the entirety of Lebanon and the capital Beirut, to vicious bombardment by the Israeli military, especially the Air Force and the artillery, and also many of the border areas are being invaded right now by the ground forces of the Israeli occupation army. So that means that many, many crimes and transgressions are taking place on the ground. So that explains to us what Israel is trying to hide. They're trying to hide targeting the UN. They're trying to hide targeting hospitals and basic infrastructure. They're trying to hide killing over 2,500 people, mostly civilians in Lebanon. So that's, in my very humble opinion, why the Israelis are carrying on their incessant targeting of journalists in Lebanon and Gaza alike.
Indeed, what you're speaking about here, what we're speaking here is how is that, or how does that could influence Lebanon's response to the escalating violence?
It will not, like if we mean by Lebanon, because Lebanon now is a very loose word, if you mean Hezbollah, it doesn't really change anything. Hezbollah is struggling to fend off Israeli attacks and is trying to do its best in order to contain the Israeli incursion into southern Lebanon, which is growing to become a full-scale invasion, this ground operation, basically. So they do not have much to do. They launch missiles and lob missiles into northern Israel and sometimes in Haifa and Tel Aviv. And the effectiveness of these rocket attacks is questionable, to be honest. They cannot do anything. The Lebanese government is basically powerless. All they can do is plead for international support. So unfortunately, there will be no appropriate response from Lebanon because Lebanon is being victimized right now by the Israeli war machine, unfortunately. So if we cannot assume that Lebanon can do anything to further protect the journalists and the reporters working on the ground, those heroes who are trying to shed light on the realities on the ground and what's going on, especially reporters and media workers in pan-Arab media outlets. And as we have seen, a multitude of networks, media networks, have had the reporters and the workers targeted in both Gaza and Lebanon. Lately, Al-Qahira Al-Ikhbariya, a sister organization of Qnews, one of their photographers was injured as we were discussing this before we went on air, Mona. So unfortunately, it's a very bad situation, and I do not see how Lebanon can do anything to affect it to the better.
Yes. Israeli airstrikes have specifically targeted Hezbollah strongholds, including sensitive sites in southern Beirut. So can you elaborate on Israel's strategic aim with these operations and the responses from Hezbollah, and how are both sides positioning themselves in such intense phase of the conflict?
What we can read from the Israeli strategies applied on the ground on Lebanon, we can see one scenario that is true and that is undisputable, that Israel is employing a scorched earth policy in southern Lebanon and in the Beqa Valley in eastern Lebanon and in the Dahya, or the southern suburb of the capital Beirut. As you said, are the strongholds of Hezbollah and a majority Shiite neighborhood and areas inside Lebanon. So they aim to destroy and utterly dismantle the urban areas and the bases of support that Hezbollah has within Lebanon in an effort to enrage the local population and stigmatize them further and turn them against one another, basically. Because unfortunately, Lebanon from the inside is far from united in confronting the Israeli aggression in one certain on one certain doctrine or with single mechanism, so to speak. So what I see the Israelis trying to accomplish is trying to empty southern Lebanon from its residents so that they can advance further inside. And I see that the Israelis, at least through the ground operation, are trying at a minimum to establish a buffer zone in the border about 5 to 10 kilometers deep, which...
Yes. Dr. Mohammed Osman, are you still with us? Right. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed Osman, for sharing your insights on the unfolding situation in Lebanon and its wider implications. And as the conflict escalates, we continue to monitor the impact on civilians, journalists, and the humanitarian response on the ground. Well, less than 2 weeks before the US elections, the competition between Trump and Harris is getting furious. Voting has witnessed unprecedented turnout rates, and recent opinion polls indicate.
what I call an opportunity economy.
We will make America great.
We're ready to fight for it! As one people, we are moving forward.
We will make America safe again.
As election day nears, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are locked in a furious tie, each with 48% of the popular vote, according to the latest Times Siena poll. With millions already voting, Harris faces a daunting challenge in a deeply divided elections. Despite recent turmoil, including debates and dramatic events surrounding Trump, neither candidate has gained a clear advantage. Voters express pessimism about the country's direction, favoring Trump on immigration, while Harris closes the gap on economic issues, with 15% of voters undecided, an early voting trend leaning towards her. The stakes are high as both candidates aim to sway crucial battleground states. The race remains too close to call. Now, joining us to provide their analysis of this extremely tight race are from Washington, Mr. Joel Robin, a former U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, and from California, Dr. Ashraf Singh, a political expert. Good evening to you both, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Right, Mr. Rubin, what factors do you believe are contributing to Trump's lead among independent voters in Nevada, and how might this impact the overall election results?
Well, it's great to be with you, and you're right in that this is an extremely close race, and nobody can tell you with a true serious face that they know who will win next or in 2 weeks in November 5th. And so the closeness in the swing states, like in Nevada, is a reflection of economic anxiety. That's the primary reason, the concern about inflation and the rising and the cost of living, and amongst working people in particular. Now, I would argue that Kamala Harris has put out a plan, has a vision for how to help working people, to raise the minimum wage, to ensure that health care remains affordable, that does not have a tax plan that will blow up our debt and deficit through unwarranted tariffs like what Donald Trump is proposing. But that is for the voters to decide. And so economics are the number one issue. And of course, I should add, I should not forget this, that immigration, because Nevada is a state near to Mexico, is always of paramount concern and debate. And so that also comes into play. And again, I would argue that Kamala Harris has a better plan and track record in that area as well.
Right, Dr. Singh, given Harris' stronger performance among Democrats compared to Biden, what strategies might her campaign adopt to further appeal to independent voters and swing demographics?
So Harris currently is leading Donald Trump among Latino or Hispanic, American Arab in Michigan, and Catholic too. Yeah, I would like to focus on this group of voters. They're gonna to play a crucial role in battleground states. So what I'm seeing now in terms of early voting by mail, the percentage now is really less than 2020 election. And this is can really create many windows we have to analyze and have to think carefully about the outcome. So still most of the people, waiting November 5th day, the majority of Americans now. So they still watching, the strategies of Harris and strategies of Donald Trump. But so far, I can see Kamala Harris performing well in terms of improving her position, particularly in economy or in inflation, because this is one of her weaknesses, comparing, Donald Trump. But in that election particularly, we have to distinguish between educated people in the United States and non-educated people in the United States. For example, in Pennsylvania, educated people definitely gonna to vote for Kamala Harris. Non-educated people definitely gonna to vote for Donald Trump. So this is very important issue. The second issue, abortion versus inflation or versus economy, in terms of all of the issues that really let all of the Americans really concerned about them, like immigrations, healthcare, abortion, economy. So it seems to me like these two cases, abortion versus inflation, gonna to play a crucial role in terms of, first, of course, the economy. Still, the economy is very important for every American here. So this is why Donald Trump is, presenting, his point of view that he gonna to fix the economy,
Yes.
increase, the wages, taxing, cut and all that issues. But still, Kamala Harris definitely getting a popular voting from, or getting a support from most of the minorities in the United States.
Yes, let me get from that point of economy and the Trump lead to Mr. Robin. And how significant is Trump's advantage among older mate voters in Nevada, and what does that suggest about voters' priorities in that demographic?
Well, the economy is an issue that cuts across all different demographics, age ranges, ethnic groups. It's an issue that affects all Americans. Obviously, this is something that the next generation is as worried about as our retirees and our older Americans. I think this is where Kamala Harris, she has been trying to make an argument about how her stewardship of the economy going forward would be more effective, and that she also has a track record alongside Joe Biden of restoring the economy to unprecedented levels of job growth, the historic low unemployment, the lowest in 50 years on a consistent basis, and a rising stock market, and of course, inflation now dropping to its lowest point since the beginning of the Biden administration. So Donald Trump, he is trying to counter that by creating economic anxiety. But what we have to remember is that Donald Trump, when he came into office, benefited from the Barack Obama economy. And then in his last 2 years, the American economy largely collapsed and went into a tailspin. And that's what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris bailed us out of. But it is without a doubt, always, in this election in particular, the most important issue of showing who can really manage the economy. And it's worth adding, I should add this also, that there are other issues about economic anxiety that people care about. Pocketbook issues, the cost of college, the cost of healthcare and prescription drugs. And on that count, Kamala Harris has innovated a new idea. She's calling it the care economy. It's an economy about taking care of the bills and the actual expenses of everyday Americans. On that, Donald Trump has no answer, but oftentimes Americans tend to view Republicans because they want to cut taxes as somehow more effective. But I do think that Harris is targeting that message to people in Nevada, as an example, who are mothers who need childcare while they go to work, and that cost is so high, she has an idea on how to reduce those costs. So that's how she's targeting her message into groups in key demographic areas in these key swing states.
Yes, you're speaking here about a very precise file, which is the family file, and definitely what economy has to do with it. And let me turn here to Dr. Singer. And in terms of electoral strategy, how might the candidates both address the disparities in support among different racial and gender groups in the 50 and older age category?
This is a good point in term of the age, like above 50 or above 60. Mainly these guys, they are very conservative, so they gonna to choose, Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. For the teenagers and the new comers, the new voter as the new guys, to vote for the U.S. elections, definitely they're gonna to choose Kamala Harris over Donald Trump in terms of the abortion, as a major case for their interest. But the strategy of Kamala Harris in terms of approaching, the older guys in the U.S., it seems to me like very effective in terms of showing them that is, that she is still capable in handling, the healthcare issues like prescriptions and the drugs prices, which significantly was really high, last year, as Biden, mentioned earlier. That the price of insulin, for example, was an issue that he were really interested, and he was interested, and Kamala, I'm sure, gonna to be more interested in reducing the price of insulin, because this is a very pandemic disease here in the United States. So Kamala Harris actually in her move also to convince, the women's in that age about, how they can really take care of the cut taxes, that I would say they need to take high tax from the rich people in the United States, in terms of the statistics, the number of billions guys, they own billions in the United States, doubled since 1990 up to now. So it's very important for the U.S. economy that you need to tax these guys so that the state can really improve the public spending, so they can really take care of the healthcare issues of the colleges, education, and kids, and care. So all of that issues is still centered in economy.
Yes, indeed,
So,
and all these files are still undecided. My time is running out, and I turn here to Mr. Rubin. And considering that Nevada has historically leaned Democratic, what implications does this polling shift have for both parties as they approach the election?
Well, this is not a must-have state for Democrats, but it is a should-have state for Democrats. And to your point, Democrats have done well in the state, largely because of the former Senate Majority Leader, Harry Reid, who was from Nevada, and he built up a machine that could really turn out the labor voters, and there's a significant amount of unionized workers in Nevada, in Las Vegas, and he really won close elections. A loss would be hard for Kamala Harris, but not devastating. But it's a must for Donald Trump. And so he made a play earlier, before Kamala Harris, to say he would not tax tips, earnings. In other words, earnings on top of the salary of workers in Nevada. Many of those in the casino industry get tips. That was a big initiative trying to get those voters. It made an impact. But I do think that that old Harry Reid machine, and this is the last thing I'll say, of turning out voters, it's not about the margin of error in the polls. It's about the margin of effort on election day and getting people out to vote. That old machine in Nevada still exists. And that's where Democrats are likely to have an advantage on getting their voters out because of the historic power of that voting turnout machine in Nevada. But again, she does want to win this state. It would be devastating for Trump, though, if he were not to win it.
Right, that was Joel Robin, a former U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, and Ashraf Singh, a political expert. Thank you so much, both gentlemen, for being with us. And I guess that wraps up our episode today for In Focus. Remember to stay updated by following the Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEGY for the latest developments. Many thanks for watching.